Virginia Tech, April 16, 2007. 32 dead and 17 wounded. Northern Illinois University, February 14, 2008. 6 dead and 21 wounded. These are two of the most tragic and fatal shootings on college campuses in American history. Now imagine yourself sitting in a lecture hall, eating lunch with your friends here in the PSU, or even walking to class, and suddenly you're confronted by a shooter. What happens next? What would you do? The victims of the Virginia Tech and Northern Illinois shootings were just like you and I, going through their daily routines. Now these tragic shootings have forced us to reassess the safety of our college campuses. This isn't a question of can our campuses be safer. It's the means to do so. Now some people believe that by allowing our teachers and students to carry and conceal weapons on our campuses, this would create a safer environment. Utah and Texas are the only two states right now that allow conceal and carry. However, many other states have proposed this legislation. But today, I implore you to see the reasons why allowing our teachers and students to carry handguns would create an unsafe environment and more risk in the presence of a shooter. To fully understand why we shouldn't have guns on college campuses, let's take a look at the opposing argument and the holes in their case. Their first point is that guns don't kill people, people kill people. They believe that people carrying concealed weapons should know the consequences behind pulling the trigger. Also, they believe that these people should be smart enough to know when and where to use their weapons. Their second point is that to have a conceal and carry permit, you have to go through training. They believe that this training is specific enough for them to be able to know how to handle and carry their weapon. They also believe that this training would provide them with enough knowledge to conceal their weapon safely so it can't be stolen. Finally, their last point is that by having concealed weapons on campus, this would create a safer environment. They believe that if you knew your teachers and fellow classmates were carrying concealed weapons, you would feel safer. Also, they believe that if a shooter knew a campus allowed concealed weapons, that this would maybe deter the shooter from targeting that specific school. Let's just take a moment to consider the risks. This argument ignores so many of the dangers that come with allowing guns on campus. First off, let's revisit their first point, that guns don't kill people. People kill people. Yes, I agree. And this is exactly why we shouldn't have guns on campus. If people kill people, why would we provide them with the weapons to do so? Bill Cosby once said that if you carry a weapon, that you intend to harm somebody, or even kill somebody. Simply put, it's unhealthy to trust human beings with a weapon that has the capability of taking lives, in a place that should be free from violence. Next, let's talk about the so-called training that you must go through to carry a concealed weapon. According to the Students for Gun-Free Campuses, this training does not require you to have law enforcement training. This requires you to have a one-day class and a couple programs that don't even require you to shoot a gun or demonstrate proficiency with your weapon or show a competence with that weapon. Now, this is in direct contrast to law enforcement training. Law enforcement officers are trained to aim for the largest mass of the body, which would be your torso, because they often miss. A New York Police Department study in 2006 showed that trained officers only hit their target 20% of the time. Now, if trained officials have that large margin of error, how are we supposed to trust our teachers and students to be able to aim, hit an intruder in the midst of chaos and confusion? Also, if they're trained to conceal their weapon properly, it would be extremely difficult for anyone to be able to pull out their weapon, aim, and hit the shooter in this midst of chaos. Now, to prove this, a victim of the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007 who was trained to shoot a gun was placed in a simulation of a shooting. What happened is that he ended up shooting more innocent victims and actually harming himself. Now, let's say that multiple people on campus carry concealed weapons. Now, if they are faced with a shooter, multiple people might draw their guns. When the police get there, how are they supposed to distinguish between the shooter and people simply trying to defend themselves? Even with the proper training, it's almost impossible to stop a shooter. Now, let's consider safety with having guns on campus. They said that people feel safer if they knew there were concealed weapons on campus. But according to the Christian Science Monitor, opinion polls from Texas San Antonio and Sam Houston State University, where conceal and carry permits are allowed, the majority of these students were not in favor of having concealed weapons on campus. And when I asked my public speaking class of about 20 students, the majority of them said that they would not feel safer knowing that their teacher was carrying a concealed weapon. Now let's take a look at a couple other situations that deal with safety. Now we all know those people that forget to lock their dorm rooms when they leave. Now let's say that that person had a concealed weapon. They would most likely store that concealed weapon in their dorm room. Having your iPod stolen or your wallet stolen is one thing, but having a gun stolen on a college campus is a risk that we can't afford to take. Now let's consider another student who has a conceal and carry permit. Let's say that this student was going to talk to a teacher about a grade. Now this conversation could potentially turn hostile, and that student could potentially draw their weapon in an effort to get their way with the teacher. There are so many consequences with having weapons on campus that we just can't predict. Finally, their last point is that if a shooter knew that a campus had guns, that they might be less inclined to attack that campus. But keep this in mind. Many shooters tend to be suicidal, meaning that they leave their house in the morning knowing they will take their own lives. This means that they're not going to worry about being shot at. Their main concern is taking as many lives as possible. And also, if a shooter knew that a college was allowing people to carry weapons, wouldn't they be more inclined to carry heavier weaponry to combat those guns? College campuses are supposed to be safe and healthy learning environments. And with the presence of guns, these become unsafe environments and a risk that we just shouldn't take. School shootings are rare, yes, but they are something that everybody needs to be prepared for. And by allowing our teachers and students to carry guns on campus, we are creating an unsafe environment for everybody. Fighting fire with fire is not the solution to this problem. But the solution is simple. Don't allow guns on college campuses. Vote no to these legislations. Allow our security guards to do their jobs protecting college campuses while we keep our teachers teaching and our students learning. However, if you ever are in a situation of an emergency, such as a shooter, you should know the safety plan and what to do in that situation. College is supposed to be one of the best times of our lives, where we make lifelong friends and learn new things. And by having a safety plan in case of an emergency such as a shooter, and keeping guns off of our campuses like Missouri State University, then we can live out our lives safely and prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future.